Olu, what is our fourth and final main topic today?
Main topic number 4 comes to us from Darren Robinson, who says, "Hi, John. Darren here. New fan, by the way. Love your podcast.
Thank you, Darren.
But I was reading this article about The Rock's dislike for the Shazam movie and how Shazam is his comic book rival, but isn't even mentioned in the Black Adam movie. So will a Black Adam and Shazam movie happen?"
All right, thanks a lot for sending that in. Yeah, there's, again, some headlines running around this morning. I saw a whole bunch of people on social media talking about The Rock hates Shazam. Rock hates Shazam. He has the quote going around, and we'll get into the source of the quote here in a second. Is The Rock has a disdain for Shazam. He hates it. He's going to try to keep himself. He wants to keep Black Adam completely separate from Shazam. Doesn't want to have anything to do with Shazam. All this kind of stuff is running around. And it's all coming off of one interpreted quote. From one interpreted quote. This comes from the folks over at The Wrap, who's talking about a source, talking about Dwayne Johnson and the removal of a scene from Shazam, where they noted the history of Black Adam's leading star doing his best to separate his anti-hero from Zachary Levi's own project. In fact, Shazam, a movie produced by the new DCEU boss, Peter Safran, who is of course partners with James Gunn, even had a scene in it that directly alluded to Teth Adam. That was, of course, the post-credit scene where they're sitting around on the thrones that they deleted. However, producers Danny and Hiram Garcia, along with Dwayne Johnson, asked the studio to move the anti-hero away from his comic book rival. An insider claimed Safran needs to win over all the other filmmakers, and Dwayne Johnson's thinly veiled disdain for Shazam means he probably isn't loving the idea that his boss, Peter Safran, is now the guy who produces Shazam. Safran is pretty diplomatic, so I think he will pull it off, but it won't be easy. Okay. So the first thing that we need to point out here with all these, this is the quote that everybody's running now with, saying Dwayne Johnson hates Shazam and all this kind of stuff. It's based on this. Let's look at this carefully. Bring up the quote one more time there, Jonathan, if you don't mind. First of all, it's an insider claimed that Safran needs to win over all the other filmmakers. Dwayne Johnson's thinly veiled disdain for Shazam. So what this is basically is somebody who is not Dwayne Johnson. He's not saying Dwayne Johnson said he doesn't like Shazam. No, it's an interpretive statement. He goes, you can kind of tell he doesn't like Shazam. Okay, so there's no actual quote. Dwayne Johnson never said that he has disdain for Shazam, that he doesn't like Shazam, and he wants nothing to do with Shazam. And he proves it. Because you're asking, well, this sounds like he wants to keep himself totally, wants nothing to do with Shazam. Well, no, that's not true. Because just 1 week earlier, and Jonathan, if you want to go over to the NDI here, just 1 week earlier, or maybe 2 weeks earlier, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was talking about how he's building up to a crossover with Shazam. Right? So if you want to understand exactly like how much he actually likes Shazam, he talks about it and he says this. He says, it was just a mosh of just put them both together because they're both connected. So that's when I said, you can't do it like this. We have to respect Shazam and his origin story. That has to be its own movie. Respect Black Adam. This has to be his own movie. Build them up, and then you can do this. And then he goes on to say in the article, afterwards, the interviewer shared the hopes for a crossover between Black Adam and Shazam, and Johnson promised, they're going to happen. So this notion that Dwayne Johnson wants to keep Shazam away, wants nothing to do with Shazam, he has a disdain for Shazam, blah, blah. It's completely undermined by the fact he's come out and said, we're building up to it. We are doing that. So why did Dwayne Johnson want that Black Adam focused post-credit scene in Shazam removed? Why is Shazam not mentioned in the Black Adam movie? Well, I think it's pretty clear, and he makes it pretty obvious here. He didn't want Black Adam just to be seen as a side character of Shazam. And to be honest, he's not wrong. That is how, if you had leaned into that, the way most people would probably look at Shazam is like, he's the side character. He's the B-level character of the Shazam verse, as it will. So he simply said, let's keep them as separate as possible while we get both of them introduced into this world, and then we start bringing them together. Black Adam has to be seen in Dwayne Johnson's eyes as his own man, his own character. He is not a side character to anybody. Maybe he's treated that way in the comics sometimes, but that's not the way we're going to treat him in the movies. And so he said, yeah, take out that one reference. By the way, there is another Black Adam reference right in the Shazam movie that's there.
Oh, yeah.
With the little sand thing and the telling of the story of his vengeance and all that kind of stuff. So that's still there. But yeah, Dwayne Johnson makes it pretty clear in his own words. We got to respect the origins of both. We've got to give them their both own unique origin stories. And the crossover is going to happen. That's what Dwayne Johnson directly said. Guys, we want to thank one of the sponsors of this episode, Wondery, and their official Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power podcast. Your host, Felicia Day, and several special guests provide an inside look at the groundbreaking series and what it took to bring Middle-earth to life. Each of the episodes of the official podcast features exclusive interviews with the series showrunners, J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, including the very first full breakdown of the incredible season finale. Felicia also goes behind the scenes with the cast and crew to bring you jaw-dropping stories and Easter eggs you won't want to miss. So watch The Rings of Power on Prime Video and listen to all 8 episodes of the official The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power podcast for free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app now. Anyway, Rob, you see this report, you read these comments. What's your takeaway?
Well, sometimes it gets annoying because you see that people just want to say things that are negative without, and that's what bothers me. I don't mind if people do analysis and say things that are negative. But when this is clearly, this story, the way it was couched, is incorrect. And I think how you just explained it is exactly what, if you read anything, if you read up, Dwayne Johnson flat out said it, and he was right. Like you just said, he wasn't wrong. He was right, because Black Adam is a secondary character. And, if you're Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and you were announced 15 years ago as making a Black Adam movie and Shazam beat you to the punch, what are you going to say? Hey, why don't we downplay that, let Black Adam be its own thing, build up a rivalry? I mean, this comes right out of the wrestling playbook. You don't want someone to be seen. I mean, I'm like, of course Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson would have said this in terms of asking somebody, hey, you want to build up a rivalry between two people? You give them equal weight in terms of the general public, so they can anticipate that fight. And I think that's great. I mean, his strategy is great. He's doing the same thing with Superman. But with Superman, obviously, Superman is Superman. Superman already is established. But in cinematic terms, Shazam wasn't established, nor was Black Adam. I think it's a smart strategy, and Dwayne is a smart businessman.
Yes, he is.
And I think he's exactly right. And nowhere did he say that he didn't like Shazam.
Right. I mean, I'm not refuting their inside source. I'm not
No, neither am I.
But even the inside source, their words were clearly interpretive. It's like, did he say he wasn't feeling good today? No, I could just tell he wasn't feeling. I mean, it was an interpretive statement.
And look, most people cannot give you a dissertation. Most people probably didn't even know that Black Adam is from, the Captain Marvel character was from a different company, Fawcett. Mm-hmm. It wasn't even a DC character. And DC purchased the rights to these characters and the whole Marvel family in this entire universe. And Captain Marvel was the big red cheese. So that was all the way back. Most people don't know that. Mm-hmm. So they're in their own minds, they're adding to their own interpretation of something that is incorrect.
Chris, you heard all the quotes, the headlines, the stuff like that. Yeah. What's your takeaway from this?
I mean, it really just seems like he wanted to have his own flagship film. And there's nothing wrong with that, because if you do introduce him in that way, right, then it becomes that kind of villain of the week situation where it's well, is this our next one and done villain that Shazam will go up against? Is this somebody we're going to see them battling throughout the DCEU? How is this going to happen? And to Rob's point, you hype up 2 individuals and then you have them go head to head. There's usually a better payoff there. And you could correct me if I'm wrong here. In his original and comic interpretations too, he was like one and done and then didn't come back for like 30 years.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what would have happened before, is if you had that debut, it would have been and that was our movie with Black Adam. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, the general audience probably would have looked at it and said, oh, so Black Adam is lesser than.
Exactly.
Yes.
He's lesser than.
Or you'd have to try to.
The main guy, Black Adam, is lesser than.
You'd have to try to Loki-fy him, of then making it this, charming anti-hero who you're trying to build up and have this other kind of interpretation of him. And that's not who Black Adam is, right? So while definitely an anti-hero, it's not going to be this like trickster that we're all like, oh, cute, we like him. We want to have him be a real threat, and he needs to be the powerful entity he is in the DCEU. All
right. Now, I also read some people saying, well, Shazam 2 better have a Black Adam reference. Well, remember the events of Black Adam take place over the course of what, like a day and a half? I mean, it's a pretty short window. So it doesn't necessarily, Billy may not know anything about this whole thing. So maybe there will be a reference in it. Maybe there won't.
I think that there will be, because you've got these other ancient and evil entities in the movie. I don't know how they're going to play it all in, but I could even see them summoning Black Adam, because Billy doesn't know about Black Adam, but they would.
Maybe. Well, it all depends on timeline. Because at this point, with all the moving around, I can't even remember which movie was theoretically supposed to come out first. I mean, I think the Black Adam one was theoretically supposed to come out in 2015. So whatever.
And the fact that they shot the Superman scene late, I'm sure that was also a time when they could be like, yeah, maybe we should do something for Shazam too. Put it all together. Lead up to whatever the announcement that James Gunn's going to make, like he did on Twitter with that thing.
All right. Guys, the question is for you. What do you think about this? Maybe you buy into that. Maybe you think that one insider source has nailed it and that Dwayne Johnson hates Shazam. Although one thing I should point out, at CinemaCon a couple years ago, Dwayne Johnson's out there on stage, the first image he put up was that one of those comic images of Black Adam fighting Shazam and Superman. That was just one of the very first images he ever posted. So something else to keep in mind. Anyway, how do you guys interpret this whole thing? Whatever your view on it is, jump down to the comments section below and leave those thoughts there.